I'm Amy Thompson. I have the pleasure of hanging out with all of you in our alumni network. So thanks for being here today. I truly am just so excited because you are in for a treat as we learn from Tom Fernandez. When we get together, it just really is so inspiring when we're around so many alumni that are doing amazing things. And Tom is certainly in that boat. So let me tell you a little bit about Tom Fernandez. He saw a need. He saw a need in our community, and then he saw a solution in another community, and he truly has made it his personal mission to bring that solution here to Cincinnati. And when I think of somebody who's a really wonderful example of a go-getter, somebody who's action-oriented, who really is willing to roll up their sleeves, persevere, keeps going, even against obstacles, that truly is Tom. And he is the co-founder of the Last Mile Food Rescue. He's a graduate of Leadership Action Class 4 and was very involved with Leadership Action Class 5, who worked on this project. And he also, we know he doesn't sleep because he's also the senior business advisor for the Chamber's Minority Business Accelerator. He's a great family man, a great friend, and all around just a wonderful leader. So Tom, I'm thrilled you're going to be teaching all of us today about how we can get involved and learn more about the last mile. So how will this work today? We're going to jump in. We're going to see a brief video that will help kind of set the stage. We'll have a presentation, and we also really want to have a conversation with you all. So please use the chat if you have any questions at any point that you want to ask about the program, the initiatives. Please jump in, use the chat. So why don't we start off and watch a quick video, and then we'll jump in. The video worked a moment ago, so it's always fun when this happens. And if it doesn't work, we'll be happy to send it to you. Let's give it a moment. All right, we're calling an audible. No worries. We will certainly send you the link to the video. It's a nice resource that provides an overview, and Tom is certainly going to get into that as well. So we will get that out to everyone. So at this point, I am excited to turn it over to Tom, who's going to really help us understand what are our local challenges, what are the solutions, and how can all of us as alum be part of it. Tom, welcome, and take it away.
Thank you, Amy, for that kind introduction. And thank you to my fellow Chamber alumni for continuing to serve our community. Our community needs us now more than ever as leaders. For our agenda today, I'm grateful to share who we are and what we do and how you can help. And I want to invest in you as leaders by describing how we use the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers leadership model that I created. I'm so proud to partner with my co-founder, Julie Schiffman. She's the one in the middle of that picture of the three of us there doing a food rescue. One of the things that Julie and I are changing are what founders look like. Last month, we celebrated National Women's History Month. We need more women founders as a critical enabler for equity. For me, as a proud Filipino Asian American, Last Mile is my second nonprofit that I've co-founded, with SACE being the first 13 years ago when I was still at P&G. Last Mile Food Rescue is on the same high growth trajectory as SACE was then, with both being highly relevant, having broad acceptance, and broad funding support to grow. Next month, in May, as we celebrate Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the US, I ask that you see how your organization's Asian Americans are doing. Participate fully in any activities or start activities as needed. I'd like to make some comments about our staff, which is 100% women and 100% awesome. Men have an active role in developing women leaders. So in my case, I'm encouraging our Chief Operating Officer, Eileen Budo, who's on the left side of that three of the photo, to participate in next year's Leadership Cincinnati class. In the top right, Benita Munnerlin is our food donor dispatcher. Olivia Cook, in the middle there on the right, leads our volunteers and our marketing. Moxie John in the bottom leads our nonprofit agency coordination. Those are the agencies that receive food. And we have a terrific working board that includes business leaders and nonprofit leaders, and those who have been long in the fight to end hunger, including Kurt Reiber from Free Store Food Bank, Aaron Rolfus from Kroger's, and others. Who goes hungry in Cincinnati? It's 270,000 of our neighbors in need. And those are pre-pandemic numbers. And currently, Feeding America estimates that during the pandemic, hunger has sharply increased to an estimated 1 in 5. And we know as leaders that hunger will remain at high levels long after the recovery, which is underway. There are so many organizations doing terrific work already in the fight to end hunger. And those include Master Provisions, St. Vincent de Paul, Le Soup, and so many more. And we need all of these different solutions because so much is wasted. 62 million tons ends up going to the landfill each year in the US. And the stark statistic is that that's enough to feed all of the hungry 4 times over. And given that we're in Earth Week globally and Earth Day tomorrow, if food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases. So we not only feed the hungry, but can make an environmental impact through last mile food rescue. And at its core, last mile food rescue solves a transportation problem. This food is thrown away simply because it's easier to throw it in the trash than donate it. And the 2 core reasons for that are that businesses are designed to sell that food and not rescue it. And let's be clear, waste exists throughout the entire food supply chain, starting at the farms, going to distributors, then retailers like groceries, and then our homes. And all of these points in the supply chain have active solutions going on, but still so much is still wasted. So it just is a call for behaviors to change. And that's what Last Mile Food Rescue does by providing a new solution. I'm really happy to say that our solution is completely scalable, and we're already having terrific success. So how we work. This is just super exciting because we mobilize volunteers and we call them food rescue heroes because that's what they are. They're heroes. They volunteer their own time and out of the goodness of their heart experience unimaginable joy dropping off food to an agency that needs it. What I wanted to talk a little bit here about is in the mobilization of volunteers, we have them use an app that we licensed, and it's really easy to do. And you can download it on your phone, and it's called Last Mile Food Rescue Hero. So it's super simple on how to volunteer. All you do is you download the app for free. We have a safety training that only takes 15 minutes. And if you've ever used an Uber, it's simple as that. All you do is then claim the rescue that's convenient for your schedule. And we already have hundreds of volunteers, but we need more. This is Dennis. He's one of our super food rescue heroes. And all you really need is the iPhone that he's got in his hand, or a smartphone, a vehicle, and mostly our rescues are an hour or less. What we rescue is good food that you and I would normally eat. And mostly the food that we rescue is fruits and vegetables that the working poor and the poor oftentimes don't get. And so we're really proud that that food is something that we rescue is, again, food that we would eat ourselves. It's all the good stuff. We do have limitations, and what we don't save is, for example, any food that's already been part of a buffet or that shows signs that you have mold or rot. Again, things that we wouldn't eat, and anything from a personal kitchen or meat that wouldn't be thawed. So these are the types of restrictions that we have for food donations. And we rescue it throughout the supply chain, starting with distributors like Castellini, grocers like Kroger, restaurants like Capital Grille, and soon we'll be rescuing from event centers as the economy begins to open back up. And people can know and donate with confidence because of the Federal Good Samaritan Act. And this is an important act that was passed in 1996 to encourage more food donations. And it protects food donors from civil and criminal liability should food that's donated in good faith later cause harm to a recipient. And it's this act that has spurred more donations, but again, so much food is still wasted. So there's much more work to do. And what we do then is we deliver to nonprofits. Here in this picture is Leroy from CANE, which stands for Churches Active in Northside. And they're one of our current nonprofit recipients. And what they told us to the Leadership Action Class 5 when they visited CANE is that CANE anticipated that not only would they be able to serve more people with the additional food that Last Mile would give them, but also they could redeploy their volunteers to do other services, other wraparound services that their clients need. And this is exactly what's happened. So since November, and we've started to deliver to CANE, CANE has told our board that they have been able to serve more people because their very limited volunteers have been able to do other things because our food rescue heroes are doing such a good job delivering that food that normally their volunteers would have to get. So really, how is that match made? And let's just imagine a scenario where a donor like Castellini says that they have mixed vegetables. So our technology and on our app, and then our people figure out, okay, if a donor has mixed vegetables, who needs it? Well, it could be a soup kitchen like Our Daily Bread, or a pantry like CANE, or a daycare like the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati. And the YMCA is a great example as a daycare because we set up the YMCA as a recipient because of a Leadership Action 4 connection. So Jorge Perez, the CEO, was a classmate of mine in LA4, and I asked, could we start delivering to the YMCA, and it fit. So that connection was made, and now we're happily part of the YMCA solution. So really, how can you as leaders help? There's really just 3 ways that we're asking for. Please download the app and do a rescue. And I can promise you, it's just a joy that I think that you'll come back and do more. I want to ask your help to connect me to a volunteer engagement leader in your organization. We'll follow up with them and scale your volunteers because we need more. And then we would ask your help to connect us to chain restaurants or operations where we can scale through a chain and increase our amount of food donations. So that's what I wanted to just briefly cover. And again, happy to take questions.
Perfect. Tom, thank you. Really helpful overview, and I'm excited for us to really transition this to more of a conversation with the friends and alum who are on the call. So just a reminder, if anybody has any questions, if you want to put that in the chat, and happy to have you all jump in as well to ask the questions directly to Tom. But I want to get us started. Tom, as I look at, first of all, I just love seeing all these wonderful people on this call, and hello to you all. But when I think about a lot of the leaders that are on this call, I know that many of them are serving on boards or they're involved where they're using this, right? They're using their brains and that's their gift. There are many times, Tom, where I would like to use my hands for more of a give back, and I want to get my family involved. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I'd love to show her a way to give back. So I'm curious, this seems like a pretty easy once a week or when it works out opportunity, and it's a way to do a physical hands-on volunteer opportunity where I can role model and work with my kiddos and get people involved. Are you seeing that families are involved? Tell us a little bit about, is that an option? Could families get involved? What's that look like?
It absolutely is an option. And we're seeing families get involved, as you say, and really as role models. These parents and guardians are taking their young children there. 2 weeks ago, when I did a rescue at Community Action Agency, a mom and her daughter pulled up, and it was just amazing because the child was helping, smiling, and unloading food. And we spoke, and it's, they've done several rescues. So they just build it into their schedule. It can be on a weekend, when families tend to do more rescues on the weekends because they have the commitments during the week. But yeah, it's a thrilling activity to do as a family, and sometimes friends do it together. But yeah, it's an inherently safe activity because we've had to deal with COVID. But all these protocols are safe such that a group in the car can do it together, and that really encourages repetition.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. And I'm seeing a lot of people nodding their heads. And Brian, I'm looking at you, my friend Brian. Thank you for the question. Good to see you. Brian, also a great leader on another project. So he had a question for you, Tom. First of all, also great program and excited to learn more, he said, and just downloaded the app. He's curious on the radius relative to his company, which is Cintas and residents in Mason. He wasn't seeing a lot of immediate options and about signing up. So can you kind of talk about what is the radius? Where might some of those drop-offs be?
Sure. We are, in fact, in 4 counties in Ohio, including Warren County, Mason. And we're in 2 counties, in Indiana, and 6 in Kentucky. So we are truly a tri-state operation. And that's part of the reason why we chose Last Mile Food Rescue. One, because of the connection being that our volunteers are that last mile, but to be essentially regionally agnostic, if you will, to Cincinnati. It's because we serve the tri-state itself. Yeah, so look for more certainly in Mason, and more will come every day. Really, because that's the ramp up. So 4 months in, we're optimizing the onboarding of volunteers to match the supply of food. so that volunteers can easily get rescues and then be encouraged to do more. And so it's that balancing act that we're having with, as we get more food, we onboard more volunteers and agencies, because the agencies are all saying they need more food.
Mhm.
And that's that whole unfortunate truth about hunger was persistent despite all of the great work that's going on in our region. Hunger has remained not only a regional, but a national and global problem, despite all of this food being wasted. So we're bringing that newer solution to try to make a giant impact.
Perfect. Thank you. And I imagine, Brian, if you have connections, I'm sure he'd welcome any additional connections up in that area. I will say, I don't think we live that far from each other. There's UDFs that are up in kind of that Mason-ish area, and then we're needing drop-offs further south. So you may have to drive a little bit for the drop-offs, but not too significant.
Sure.
Yeah. So good
And
stuff.
again, just a brief follow-up comment or two, I guess, Tom, I mean, maybe offline, whether it's through you or someone else, right, directly, to just talk more in detail what Amy said, right, relative to personal volunteering and or networking, right, other companies here, restaurants and things of that nature. So welcome that opportunity, be it you or
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. Hey, that's music to his ears. That's good stuff. And then we've got another friend on the call. We have lots of wonderful people on the call. Dave Wallace is out there somewhere. There you are. And is really curious about last year. Do you happen to know how much food was rescued last year? Can you talk about any kind of high level metrics?
I can, and last year really is short for us, right? So we launched November 17 of 2020. So it's all it's really, we're in our fourth month, right? And so we had started, Dave, with a 100,000-pound objective for year one. So since our launch, the community response has been so overwhelmingly good that we have raised our year one estimate 3 times already since 4 months ago at launch. And so what that means is that we're blowing through projections and really just trying to figure out how high is high. So what we're on track to do is really meet a base objective of 1 million pounds of food for year one as a base. And you all know me, that base is, we need to push on that. So we actually have a stretch objective now of 1.5 million pounds of food and 750,000 pounds of CO2 avoidance for year one, which, you would know the math on that, right? It's 15 times our year one first objective. And so we know that we can keep pushing, and that's why we're pushing with this presentation about what we need from you, because the community needs it. And so we can be aggressive as leaders to try to reach that need.
Tom, I want to jump in around, there's more questions around the food, and I'll certainly get back to the other questions, but let's keep going with that theme around the food itself.
Yeah.
So Gina, thank you for this question. So you had mentioned that the food that's been part of the buffet is out, that you can't use that and rescue them. Does that extend to all cooked food? And the follow-up is, curious to know what does or doesn't qualify from an event or a catering venue perspective.
It's a great question. So anything that's been plated, Gina, is out. If an individual serving has been prepared, it's out. Or if it's been exposed for service to the public, then that's also out. And so, and we can give you the full list because it's specific, because it has to be. But but generally speaking, there is a lot then that still can be saved, meaning in a catering operation, sometimes there is an enormous amount of food that is always prepared as a bogey, as a just in case more people come to the wedding, just in case something happens. And that food oftentimes never leaves the kitchen, right? So that food is still eligible for rescue under certain conditions, which a lot of food meets those conditions. So we're getting, trays of food, chicken breasts, salads, wonderful stuff. And that's, currently cooked food that is wonderful to rescue.
Thank you. That is helpful. And a lot of this is truly just how to keep people safe and make sure that it's food that is going to be healthy for anyone to eat.
Right.
Dan Hurley, fun seeing you, my friend. You're there in the middle of the screen. Love it. So Dan's asking a great question. Is the Freestore Food Bank's fresh vegetable and fruit truck, that was a project of LC38, is that still operating, and have they benefited or connected with you?
I believe the food truck still is operating. I've read about it recently. And Dan, I don't quote me chapter and verse, but yeah, I think the answer is yes. And there are, as I said, Kurt Reiber's been a friend and mentor to me to help me think through, and Julie think through a lot on Last Mile, and Kurt's on the board. And there are just so many touch points that we are collaborating on, again, because all of us need to collaborate to meet, and because we're bringing different solutions. So collaboration is so critical. But we haven't partnered with Freestore on that specific truck, but there are so many other things that we are partnering with Freestore that makes more sense at this point in time.
Great. Keeping on with the theme of partnering and who you're partnering with, Jill, fun to see you out there. I always love that background, looking good. Jill has a great question, and Jill, you may need to expand on this. As a social determinant of health, Mercy Health has worked with Produce Perks to bring healthy options to neighborhoods who lack them otherwise. Do you work with any of the Produce Perks program? Are you familiar with it?
I'm not familiar with the Produce Perks program, Jill, but I'd be glad to follow up with you. And
Jill, do you mind sharing a brief bit about it?
I have not been very super involved in that program. Our community health team has, but we did, they were doing some work on this given the pandemic and the increase in need for food because of food insecurity. So I'm happy to follow up with Tom to make that connection. But I know we did some work, for instance, in Saylor Park to bring fresh produce to kind of a local, non-big chain store there so that people had access.
That's wonderful, Jill. And for everyone, Jill raises a critical point on the social determinants of health. And if I could just expand briefly on that, I'm sure she and others in this industry can. But we have on our board Kiana Tribute, who is from the Health Collaborative, and she trained us on the social determinants of health, and the impact is so profound, which Last Mile can have here. But in a nutshell, we know that we know that the poor and the hungry don't get enough nutritious, healthy food. And our model specifically rescues food that is near-term expiry, or call it 72 hours before it's expired. And most of what we deliver is fresh fruits and vegetables from organizations including Castellini. And so we're really proud to provide highly nutritious food to those that need it most. And as we know that food access and food quality are incredible social determinants in terms of the poor not having the access. So again, it's all of these things are so interrelated about how a person can have a healthy lifestyle. So again, we're proud to do our part.
Awesome. Tom, thank you. I do want to switch gears a little bit because there's some questions coming around the staff and the volunteers. So if we could just kind of talk through the team that you have in place.
Yeah.
One of the questions is around volunteers. Is there a minimum age? I certainly know you talked about kind of a family model, but what if a volunteer wants to sign up and they're a kiddo, maybe they're 16, I guess they'd need to be able to drive a car. Is there a minimum age?
Well, the minimum requirement is to be driver eligible, right? So you need to have a car. And so that is the first thing. So to claim a rescue, you have to be driver eligible. And so that's the main thing. And then after the driver comes in, we do not have age requirements for those that participate with the driver. So the family example is really the case, where the driver is paired with a parent or guardian in that car. Now, we certainly encourage the under 16s to encourage their parents and guardians to be rescue heroes. But one of the groups that we're targeting for new groups of volunteers are high school and college students themselves. So the younger that we can get the rescuer, the better, right? So very socially motivated groups. And so, but again, that would be 16 and up, if you will.
That's great. Jen, I'm wondering if that was a personal question. I'm thinking about some kiddos of yours that you might be trying to pull in on something fun there. So good question, perhaps, right? Yeah. And then another question came in, good one, about the employees. And are they volunteers? Are they paid? And if so, what's the funding model? And maybe talk about both of those things, because I think folks would like to know about the funding model as well.
Yeah, on the funding model, this really goes back to, on the funding model, we are a nonprofit. And so, our funding model relies on financial donations, mostly from foundations. And my partner, Julie Schiffman, is an expert, in terms of leading organizations just in general, but in particular has a incredible gift at fundraising. So, for example, recently Bank of America provided us a substantial grant. And the importance of this is that foundations, really heavily screen and they believe in our model. And so when an organization like Bank of America believes in you, that's really a great shot in the arm for us. But it is, as a nonprofit, we rely on donations. Foundations, certainly individual donations are going to be key. We've had key individual donors. But what we're not doing at this point is selling anything. And in that regard. So we don't have any revenue, if you will, as an organization. On the volunteers side, so we have paid staff, and I can tell you that they are outperforming in every aspect, just in general. And while we try to offer competitive wages, I can tell you they're punching way above their weight. And so it's with gratitude that I look at the individuals that we have on staff that are just doing outstanding work. And without giving away too many confidences, I would comment that we certainly have staff who are not taking any pay or taking, in my view, a high discount. And again, and I only share that in the resolve of saying that we are mission focused, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
So I think you're also saying if anybody on the call, in all honesty, has connections to foundations, to grants, to opportunities that may be a good alignment or fit, you would certainly welcome that. Great. So Doug's got a great question for us coming in around La Soup. We certainly have been hearing about La Soup and La Soup's wonderful mission for years and years. And the question is, are the missions similar, or how do you see that they differentiate, and how do you really work well together?
Yeah, I love this. They're a great organization, and we both help feed the hungry. So that's similar. And so organizations like ours, need to collaborate because we need all sorts of different solutions. And in their case, their main solution is converting food to a soup, it's essentially a soup form, and then serving people. And that does differ from us in that we don't prepare any foods. In fact, we never take any inventory of product. Our volunteers pick up directly from a food donor and deliver it to a agency like Kane that distributes food. So inherent differences in the model. And again, I love what they're doing, and we need all of these solutions, right? So we need to innovate. Everybody needs to continue to innovate, and they've done an amazing work at innovating, and in fact have just moved into a new, bigger space, serving more people. But yeah, that's how we're different.
Great, thank you. So let's stay on the thought of really where you're getting the food to be able to make those donations. And so a couple different questions. There was one that came in around, what about working with businesses? Many businesses have a corporate cafeteria. Could that be an option?
It absolutely can be, and that's where we're vectoring now. I think that with the pandemic, rightly, a lot of the corporate cafeterias have been shut down, and so it just hasn't been a priority. But now, as offices begin to reopen, if you will, major cafeterias will start to continue to produce food. And we certainly would ask, I see the names, Brian at Cintas, great. Could we figure out if we could rescue at the corporate cafeterias? But absolutely. And could we not only get your volunteers and maybe, for example, Cintas do a group rescue or encourage their teams to do rescues, but could we receive food from your corporate cafeteria? Absolutely. That prepared food and then the raw food, like the fruits and veg that weren't processed, we certainly can pick up. So we'd love to do that.
Excellent. And another question, just to keep with this theme of other kind of brainstorms of thoughts on where to rescue the food, curious on assessing kind of the local restaurants or food businesses, realizing they're not all the same scale. So is there a point where it's worth it, not worth it, those kind of things?
Yeah, and that's why right now we're just trying to go after chains because we can then scale the chain as an example. So like 2 or more is always better than the 1, and that's the only thought process there. We'll get to the 1s, but we need the 2s and mores now. And so if you know a chain restaurant owner that has multiple units or multiple people who have single units that would want to meet with us, but we'd love to do it. And right now, the prioritization, the strategic choice has to be on scale. So that's why we're just asking right now for the chain restaurants, and then we'll get to the 1s because those are going to be great sources too later.
Great. Following up on, as we continue with this theme, what about other local grocers like Meijer, Whole Food, Walmart? Are those options? Would you welcome those connections? Do you have those connections currently?
Yes, they're great options. Yes, many are underway. And yes, we want your connections just to make sure that ours are, we would cross-reference them. But yes, so as far as it goes, we need them all. And we may not know everybody. And you as leaders, may be able to cut through introductions and get us to the right person quickly. And that's, again, as proven leaders in our region. This is the expertise that we need and that we're so grateful that you could help support us.
Excellent. Thank you. When we go to the timing is critical, especially if food. So I imagine there are some rescues that are logistically a little bit easier. Your vegetables, your things like that, that can go and perhaps wait overnight and be dropped off the next morning. Question comes in around, let's say you have an event and you have some of this leftover food. Some agencies that may want to receive this might not be open. How do you handle some of that dynamic or logistic?
That's a very astute question, because this is exactly what we're finding, right? So there may be optimal times for a rescue. So in this particular case, if an event or a restaurant shuts, after 10 o'clock, say in the evening, that food has to be prepared and stored correctly, which often means refrigeration, and then wait, because there's rescues wouldn't take place at night per se, because one, that's not convenient for the rescuer, and we may not have a place to drop it off, because like I say, our model is that we take no inventory. The driver goes to the donor, picks it up, and drives it straight to the agency in need when that match is made. And so we continue to, at phase one, if you will, is maximize the within the 9 to 5, if you will, hours of the agencies that serve. And so like Churches Active in Northside has very specific target hours that they tell their guests, as they call them, when they can come to get food, and then we just match them. Now, the question though presents an opportunity for the future about, again, 40% of all food is wasted, as Kroger's Zero Hunger, Zero Waste program underscores. That food, a out of hours rescue, is still an important part of food that gets wasted. And so if we can innovate to get that too, then again, we close the hunger gap. But there's so much still right now that's available in the 9 to 5 time frame that we haven't saturated that yet. So again, we're making a strategic choice for now to get that timing when the agencies are open.
And this is complex, right? You're dealing with logistics like that, and this is a big issue. And there's a lot of incredible organizations and leaders locally that are playing some part of this ecosystem of really trying to help, including, I believe we have a leader from Master Provisions who's also on our call. And Tom, you mentioned them right before we launched into our webinar. So what? Tell us a little bit. Are you partnering? What is that looking like?
Yeah, I mean, Master Provisions is a great organization. So if they're on, they can give a shout out for themselves. But I mean, they've been long in the fight, and we're trying to figure out, like with all of these agencies, how can we partner, right? And so, so who's on for Master Provisions right now?
Victoria.
Hey,
Victoria. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, we were brainstorming in the early days. It's just we haven't figured out yet how to partner, but this is the whole thing. We love what you're doing, and yeah, let's keep the dialogue going.
Victoria, for folks that may not know, do you mind giving a quick snippet on what you all are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we help with food rescue in a different way. Our food mission started in 2014. We have been around for 26 years. That was a newer part of what we do. We rescue food from wholesalers. We get the big donations, and instead of giving it to people directly, we connect it with other food pantries, local nonprofits. Any kind of nonprofit can come and get food. So that's where we're kind of different there as to other groups.
Great.
And so
certainly some synergies.
that kind of
sure.
collaboration that we just got to figure out. We need all of the solutions, like Master Provisions, like with soup, because the hunger problem is so profound.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So friends, I do want to transition a bit. When we think about really making a difference in our region, it takes collaboration like we just talked about. How are we working together and all in this as a region to make a difference? It takes leadership. And leadership is something we continue to talk about and lean in with all of our alum. It's a lifelong journey for all of us. And Tom is someone who, I know I like to tease him that he doesn't sleep, but he is a serial entrepreneur. He's a big thinker, and he's got a really great leadership model that he's been using that's helped him be successful that I thought he might be able to share with all of you today. Just as we round out our call, it's always good for us to be reminded about how am I stepping up and stepping in as a leader. So Tom, I want to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Amy. So what I wanted to share is an investment back in you as leaders. Our community, as I said, needs each of us as leaders now more than ever. So some of you may be familiar with the 4E leadership model of General Electric that included, it was a way for them to quickly describe what they expected out of their leaders. And so they said they expect energy, energize, edge, and execute. And not to be outdone, Procter & Gamble took that and increased it to 5 E's. And so Jen Weil, who's also on this call, and myself, a longtime 23-year P&G employee, we grew up with the 5 E's of leadership and what P&G expected of us, being to be able to envision, energize, engage, execute, and enable. And as I said, when I was at P&G, I started another nonprofit called the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers. And P&G, I convinced them, and they invested the first $100,000 and have been an annual sponsor of SACE since 2007. And I added a 6th E because within the Asian American community, leaders have often been, in my view, unfairly criticized as being too silent. And so I added a 6th E called elastic leadership. And it's that ability to change your normal leadership style, because sometimes people don't always hear us on the first go. And you as a leader have to be able to figure out how to communicate in a way, how to lead in a way where your point gets across. And that's that elastic leadership. So I'll just take you through a few examples of what that looks like from a last mile situation. So envisioning leadership means defining your vision and goals and see that big picture. And so, you know, after Julie Schiffman and I separately shared our vision for applying food rescue models in Cincinnati with Kurt Reiber from Freestore Food Bank, he said, well, wait a minute, he connected the two of us together, and that's how Julie and I became partners. And so you have to be able to envision, and that's really what happened. From engaging leadership, that means sharing it with others and then improving your vision through feedback. And I know Dave was asking about our results, and I can just snip it down to the past 30 days alone. In the last 30 days, we've had 71 food donors like Castellini, like Kroger, 49 nonprofits like Kane and others, 153 food rescue heroes. They've delivered 144,537 pounds of food, great food, and 78,484 pounds of CO2 avoided. And when you annualize that, that's why I'm saying that we're going to break our 1 million pound year one goal, which is, again, the 3rd revision. From energizing leadership, that's really creating enthusiasm for that vision and building your team's morale. And that's exactly what we're doing here today, right? So Leadership Action Class 5 took last mile and figured out that people shouldn't be afraid of donating because of things like the Good Samaritan Act, which protected donors from liability. Now we as an alumni association are meeting together, and I'm asking for your help. And soon this 2021 Sea Change class will take on last mile again to really address the hotels which are beginning to fill up as you know, as the Reds are in town and winning, as FC Cincinnati launches, as our economy reopens, hotel rooms will be filled again, convention centers will be filled again, and this class will address those groups about how they can participate with Last Mile. Leaders also empower. They must remove obstacles. And so I'm sharing this because leaders have to remove those barriers and guide others towards success. And United Dairy Farmers is a great example in Last Mile's case, because we have to customize the food rescue protocol for each donor because each of their operations is different. And then each of the supply chains is totally different. So we piloted and then expanded, and that is really a part of an exciting story with UDF. And leaders must also execute. You also have to have a meaningful plan to execute your vision. And Julie and I could have created an app here on our own. It would have cost us over $1 million and taken us a year or two to develop. But we as leaders looked around, we benchmarked, and we visited, and we interviewed people, and we picked the Food Rescue Hero, which is, in our view, and clearly the best in class. It was recorded as a fast technology company, leading technology for the world, and we're part of a 10-city group that uses the Food Rescue Hero app. And our results is that since 2006, when it was first launched in Pittsburgh, these 10 cities have rescued over 40 million pounds of food. And again, we're trying to reach 100 cities globally by 2030. So we've picked a winner and are confident in that. And on elastic leadership, it's again about adjusting leadership style for different scenarios. You know, we as leaders have to know that we are in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment, and hunger will persist well past any recovery. And we're having a strategy session because leaders have to make choices, because you can't do everything. You simply cannot. So we're having a strategy session to figure out how high is high, and how as we can, as leaders, can lean in and serve our community more and more. And really, because of people like you and our super volunteers, something really special is happening. And I really am convinced we're going to hit our stretch goal. And we're asking ourselves tough questions about what needs to occur so that we can hit even larger goals. Is 10 million pounds, you know, what needs to be true to do that, and when? So again, thank you for your help. Please download the app. Get in touch with me. Tell me you're a volunteer engagement leader. Connect us to chain restaurants and other institutions that we can scale donations. And then together, we as leaders can make a true impact in our region. And again, thanks for all your help.
Woohoo! Thank you, Tom. Not only thank you for this presentation and this time today, but truly thank you for your leadership and your vision and your just kind of endless passion. So truly, truly inspiring. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Here's my call to action here at the end. I would love to say, hey, number one, go download that app. Go dig in. Look at all those ways that Tom talked about how you can engage. Please engage. A couple other things we want you to know about as alum, that our We Lead and Leadership Cincinnati applications are currently open and they're due on May 21st. So if you know a wonderful leader that you think could benefit from the program, please nominate them by sooner than later, because now is the time. And we've had many alum who have said, I want to do something more. How else can I lean in and continue learning and developing? I would recommend checking out our Leadership Roundtable program. This is a great way to share best practices and connect with other leaders who are in similar roles. So if you are interested in that, just send a follow-up note. We'd certainly love to connect with you to see if it might be a good fit. And let's talk about getting back together in person and have a little bit of fun, whether it's on a bike or a walk. On June 23rd, we're going to get the alumni together to learn more about the Crown Initiative, another wonderful program and project that has many alum involved. And my understanding at one point was a project as well. This is really understanding and learning about how all the trails, how we can work to connect all the trails and really be a connected region. And we'll experience it on bikes or walking. So mark the 23rd down. We'd love to be with you then. So Tom, thank you, my friend. Truly inspiring, all that you're doing. An awesome hour of information, and I hope many people will dig in, roll up their sleeves, and have some fun with you. So all you alum out there, great to see you. Have a wonderful afternoon, and go download that app. Take care. Goodbye.